everyone, and welcome to this amazing fireside chat. Today we have Melissa Jackson, who's joining us. She is the Global Program Manager at The New Yorker. We're super excited to have her here today with us. We are going to talk about career growth and really specifically around, does remote stall careers? Does hybrid stall careers? Like, what are some really strategies that we can uncover with Melissa to really think about navigating your career during this time? So, Melissa, thank you so much for joining us here at Distributed. We're super happy to have you back on stage with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So before we get started, you made a pretty significant leap in your career over these past 18 months. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So many folks here at the Mural community or within the Mural community probably remember when I did another session when I was part of Samsung Next. I thoroughly enjoyed my time there. But during the pandemic, it really brought up a few things around, where I wanted to go, who I wanted to be, how I envisioned living the rest of my life, right? I think we all had those existential questions that come up during the pandemic. And I actually went through a branding program. And that branding program really led me to really discover or rediscover, I should say, because I don't think we ever kind of lose the things that we want. We just kind of rediscover them. And so through that process, I was able to find something that I had written years ago in college that talked about this idea of jumping from or being involved in education, technology, as well as media. And so I said, this is going to be the perfect time for me to make that leap. So fast forward to a few months ago, I decided to take my talents in the agile space as a facilitator, project manager, and bring them into the media world. So here I am now at Condé Nast, specifically with the New Yorker brand. And I love it. I am in love with it. I'm having a great time. And I'm really able to kind of bridge the gap between where I saw myself those years ago and to now bringing that and manifesting that into my career.
It's incredible. And so how did you find this mission statement that you wrote so long ago?
The pandemic really allowed me to sit down and take some time to really get to know myself. And it sounds very cliche, but again, I was in a branding program. I was in a coaching program because, again, we all need help. And so I sought that help. And during that process, I was able to look through some of the things that made me tick. So I went back to my writing. I went back to the folders that had all my arts and my photography and, all the things creatively that inspired me. And, I found a mission statement that my college professor for my senior year in college had us write the vision. And it was really funny. I said I wanted to just tie all three of those together. And so that's what I'm able to do here. So being an agile coach and an agilist really allows me to bridge the gap between my creative endeavors, right? So I'm working at a top tier brand within Condé Nast, but then I'm also able to bring some of my technical expertise and training that I've gained over these, decade or so.
That's amazing. Fantastic. And so we know we've had you on stage here at Miro before, and one of the things that the community and even us internally at Miro have loved are these team health checks that you facilitate with your teams. Can you tell us a little bit more about those? How did you really leverage those during the pandemic? And then I'll get to the next follow-up question after we cover team health checks.
Yeah, sure. So the team health checks were really they weren't a new idea. So this idea of checking into agile teams came out of the Spotify distributed model, right? So if anyone's familiar with agile in modern organizations, a lot of them refer to Spotify. And so we took a look at what they were doing, including at the health check, and we put a spin on it. And so the spin allowed us to not only have these comprehensive conversations around how teams are performing, but it also allowed us to create actionable next steps on how to consistently improve. Because as we know, Agile is really rooted in this idea of consistent introspection. And then adapting based on that introspection. So, that's the session that we did for agile teams. But there's also space to do that for yourself, because part of the process is just taking the themes in your life or themes in your team and asking yourself two questions. The first is, what's pushing you forward in that area, right? So really thinking about what parts of your life are pushing you forward, right? Where do you feel like you're winning? Where do you feel like you can be a model of success, right? What makes you feel good? What makes you feel happy about this particular area of your career? And then the second question really revolves around what's holding you down or what's holding you back, right? And so this is the idea that, nothing in life is perfect, and that's okay. We just want to call it out. And just be very mindful of it, right? Because that's how, again, we get into that next kind of part where we start to solution towards where we'd like to go, right? And so that's how we've been able to do it, or that's how I've been able to do it for, my agile teams. And there's also opportunity for you to bring it into your personal career space as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think we spoke about this earlier, but I think we're going to work on trying to make sure that there's a Miroverse template for team health checks and potentially career health checks. So I'll
Yeah,
follow up on that with you after this.
definitely.
Fantastic. And so as these teams and individuals are kind of participating in these health checks, does it allow for the leadership or, those kind of nurturing the careers of others within these teams? Does that data really help them inform, career paths or development opportunities, or like how is that data sort of used in that way?
Yeah, absolutely. It can be, right? So, again, why I love health checks is because it opens the door to facilitate those conversations about what is happening. I try not to put but so many limits around the questions that we ask, right? We try to be open and honest about, what our perceptions of how we're performing in each of the themes. From a management perspective, though, what that allows you to do is see one, where your team is doing well, but then also thinking about what parts of the organization are pulling you back. So, for example, you may have an organization that has a fairly junior team, and you recognize that there's opportunity to build in some learning and development modules or opportunities for knowledge share that go beyond the day-to-day work, right? And especially in the distributed environment, I think we lose sight of that because we're no longer all going to conferences in the ways we used to. But it's really important for organizations to acknowledge that these formats, right, like these open discussions, are really critical to helping your team thrive. And enhance their performance as well.
Fantastic. Okay, so
Yeah.
you're a coach and a facilitator, and so it's all about learning and kind of constantly improving and iterating on our skills. We're interested to know kind of
Mhm.
what are you investing in terms of your remote toolkit? Like what are the things you've learned over these last 2 years that you think can help people as we all continue to navigate it?
Yeah, and it's gonna sound maybe counterintuitive, but the skills I'm really digging into are a lot of interpersonal skills,
Hmm.
right? Like developing the empathy muscle.
Hmm.
You have to be very mindful that over the last, 18 months or so, we have all been through a lot. And so this idea of checking in is very important. And you don't have to wait until, um, your organization decides to run a health check, which, I definitely recommend, but it should be a part of the daily or at least a regular process of you really understanding what your teams are missing, what they're enjoying. An example of that is because we've lost that face time with one another. Teams are feeling they're feeling a little homesick in terms of being able to connect with their peers. Other people, on the other hand, or the flip side of that, there's some people who really enjoy the personal time too, right? And so just kind of understanding the mechanics between how your team thinks and operates is a skill that I'm digging into a lot more. In addition to focusing on small things, right? So oftentimes people in organizations want to do everything or solve for everything. Solving for one core challenge or one core problem actually tends to impact and influence other areas of the organization as well. So interpersonal communication and that, I think, are the two things I'm leaning into the most.
Fantastic. So timeless skills, really, like things that are
Very
going
much
to
so.
translate very well as we kind of all broach into this hybrid environment.
Hmm.
Okay, so we have the Great Resignation is certainly upon us and is with us, and so it would be. I think we're seeing a lot of people who are out there questioning, what is next for me, and so I think we also have a
Hmm.
lot of people wondering, like, how can I continue to stand out in a remote environment? Like, if I'm looking to grow my career and develop myself, like, how can I stand out if I'm home or I'm not back in the office or I'm potentially not ever going back to an
Hmm.
office? What are some of your
Hmm.
your recommendations?
Yeah, absolutely. So, digging into the idea of building those interpersonal skills, right? Making it work for you through mediums like LinkedIn, for example. So I've been doing a lot of research on people online, and getting very intentional about making sure, um, that I'm building rapport, asking for coffee dates, right? Um, we all think that we need to put, some glaring thing out on LinkedIn or, this thought piece that's going to shake the world. But people actually want to know that you care about the work that you're doing, especially if it's in service of what they're doing, right? So a lot of the work that I've been doing has been, or what I would suggest for folks to do is around discovery. And this is a really perfect time to do that, right? And I think that is why you're seeing a lot of people resigning. They're not resigning their careers. They're resigning to the parts of their lives that didn't feel satisfying or that didn't feel like they were being nurtured, right? So now we're in this phase of really digging in and really learning ourselves, right? And once we learn ourselves and get better in asking those questions about, what do I enjoy? Like, money aside, what do I enjoy? What are those small things that make me feel alive every day? And while your career may not necessarily entail you doing that every day, all the time, it is really important to make sure you listen to those little pings, if you will, to just better understand your next step.
Totally. I just pictured a notification coming through to you to remind us to do these things. Um,
Yep.
Fantastic. And so we know that you're a big Miro user and a big Miro champion. So I would love to just touch on this for a minute of just how you really used Miro in a way to progress in your career and how do you recommend people also think about that tool as well?
Yeah, now that's a great question because I've actually taken Mural on a personal level. I wish I could kind of show folks like what my digital mural board looks like for my personal life. But what I like about it is it's a visual tool. And even if you can't communicate through words, right? So I work with global teams. And so sometimes the nuances in verbal communication get lost, but visual communication is such a prolific tool because everyone can see and everyone has the same shared understanding. And so it's a useful tool to really dig into what it is that you envision for your career, your life right now. But then as that evolves, you can kind of track and measure that as well. So, whereas today I may be interested in X thing, 6 months from now, you can give yourself the grace to say, I explored that. Now it's time to explore something else, right? And then it also helps you just visualize how far you've come. I implore people to really lean into the small wins and the small things that, may not necessarily, be talked about on the daily news all the time, but this idea of actively looking for that which you'd like to do, that is a huge step. So don't discredit or discount, even your ability to do those small things, because there are people who aren't.
Totally. Yeah, and it's an interesting kind of meta moment as well, right? Like, so, being
Mm-hmm.
able to leverage a tool like Miro makes you really great at your job because you're able to facilitate visual collaboration across teams and across um, distributed teams, and then also in your personal life, you're able to then use that practice to say, like, let me visualize my whole career on a Miro board. Let me understand all of the pathways that I'm building here. So it has some interesting implications as well. Um, okay, so what would you recommend to someone who's just entering the field of facilitation and agile coaching?
There's so many things that you can do. Everything from, I always tell people, allow yourself to be a beginner, leverage things like YouTube. I call it YouTube University, because every organization, every team has content there to kind of help you in your facilitation and your agile journey, including Miro, right? So even the health check that we've done in the past, it's on YouTube. You can check it out and learn how to do it. But if you find yourself in a space where you'd like to get into this space and you're not 100% sure how or who, take your Miro board and just start to plot questions that you have into the Miro board, right? Give yourself 5 minutes to do it. It doesn't have to be a long exercise. Give yourself 5 minutes. And then as you start to put all your questions out there, you'll start to see themes. And when you start to put these themes together, you can move forward and then scour the internet or even scour Miro for opportunities for you to learn how to lean into that one particular theme at a time. So if you have questions about, again, how to transfer your skills from maybe traditional project management to being an agilist, write those questions down and then start to, Google them, reach out to people who you see having those talks on YouTube or through some other medium, and reach out to them. You'd be very surprised on how many people are very open to you reaching out to them. And if they're not, it's okay. Just go to the next person. It's fine.
Cool. And so this is a bonus question, but I hope an easy one. What is your favorite
Okay.
feature on Miro?
There are so many. I'm going to say, though, the time box.
Okay.
I know it's probably like not the most fancy feature that they have, but I love how it really integrates that opportunity for people to have really concise conversations in a very time box way. And again, I also love just how easy it is to use. So from a facilitation perspective, I've been able to get teams up to speed very quickly on Miro. So it's got a very easy learning curve as well.
Okay. Great. I mean, thank you for rolling with me. I know that was not one of the pre-planned questions.
No, no, no. That's my go-to tool. Like, all right, guys, it's time.
I mean, it keeps things moving, right? We're keeping people moving.
It does.
Um,
It sure does.
so last thoughts from you, Melissa, and this has been incredible. what do you want to tell the thousands of Miro users out there right now about navigating their next step and how they should really think about it? Just anything we didn't get to or anything you want to leave them with?
Yeah. Be very graceful with yourself and look at the career transition as a journey as opposed to a task. So tasks are very, oh, if I don't do this or I've got to do this, right? You think about everyone here probably has a list of things to do. Look instead as an adventure, getting it out into your career path. That's how I've really been able to, that's what I've done over the last 18 months, right? It was really a self discovery exercise. So if you are considering making that jump, keep that mindset very prevalent in the forefront of your mind, because otherwise, you're going to feel kind of cruddy about it. And that's not the goal here, right? The goal is to do something that you enjoy. And just know that there is someone out there to help you. So don't be afraid of asking questions.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Melissa, this has been so wonderful. And for those of you who are attending live, we're so glad that you could be here with us. And we will have this recorded so that we can capture Melissa's guidance here on navigating a career in a remote world. And congrats to you on making this part of your journey, Melissa, and
Thank
for
you.
being here to share it with us at Distributed.
Thank you so much, Colleen. This has been awesome.
Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the next session.